Okay, now this is going to be risky with a crowd this size, but we're going to try and get some audience participation feedback, which is scary. So we'll kind of do it by sections. We know that the people on the sides, you always are the most spiritual. You usually sit in the back of the church, and I get that. So, but now you've gone to the side because someone back here took your seat. So, not the who. Don't care about the who. Just shout out a couple of the things, or raise your hand or do something. What are a couple of the things that the people did that helped you grow spiritually? Okay, accountability. What else? They gave you time. Anyone else? Okay, they sent you books. They paid for lunch. I knew they were the most spiritual. Start from the fringe, you can start to work your way to the... Okay, so a couple people over here. Raise your hand real quick, and I'll just point at you real quick so you can yell out. Right over here, lady. They mentored you. They challenged you. They contributed to your growth. Okay, they shared about the relationship. Okay, they loved you. They took interest. They had knowledge of God's word right here. Okay, they read the Bible with you. Okay, hi. Right over here, a few of you, just raise your hands. Okay, right over here. What's that? They prayed for you. They asked you how you were serving. They didn't judge you. Right back there in the blue. They stepped out on faith. Okay, great. All the way in the back. Lady all the way in the back row. Shout loud. They led by example. I didn't need to tell you to shout it out. I love it. Don't mess with those Miami women, baby. They come right at you. Okay, right over here. What's that? They motivated you. Someone else. You're just putting your arm around her. Okay. What's that? They were consistent with you. Okay, bring it on home. Just a couple of you right here. We're guy in the stripes. Okay, they were persistent. A lot of pain. Marriage. Okay. No more. We don't do counseling. All the way in the back. Okay, they modeled integrity. Anybody else want to jump in? Right over there, the guy in the back. Well, you can't get any more Holy Spirit than that, you know. It's like in stereo. Okay, did you notice that every one of you, and I've done this with tens of thousands of people, it wasn't a Sunday morning service as much as all of us that teach on God's word are just like going, hey, come on, give me a little something. But most of it is the modeling that happens, which leads to number 2, top of page 5. Spiritual growth is caught more than taught. It is caught more than taught. And as parents, you know this. Your children, you can talk all you want about how you want to model Jesus to them, but they see what you do. They see what you do. And almost over the word caught that you filled in, you can almost put 90% of what you do is caught. And about 10% is the other part. The bottom line is what you teach is verbal. What they catch is what you do. And I can tell you, you may not think they're cognitive in the back seat. They remember. They remember everything my wife does. So... It's caught more than taught. Jesus made and modeled discipleship relationally. Circle that word relationally. It's active learning. In Mark chapter 3, he says he appointed 12 designated apostles that they might be with him. Paul in 1 Corinthians, and you should follow my example just as I followed Christ. Peter says, don't lord it over the people assigned to you, but lead them by your good example. Dallas Willard, who has gone home to be with Jesus, but he was a great person that wrote on spiritual formation. He says, as a leader, the greatest gift you give people is who you are becoming in Christ. People follow you for who you are more than what you do. And it's a good thing to understand that in the family unit, babies need a family before they need education. And in the same way, I would challenge you with new believers, because your church is hungry for new believers, and I love it. But just remember, they need a family. They need that connectiveness in a small group. They need education, but they need a family first. Now look at this other section, because as leaders, it needs to be starred and underlined in your hearts. But leaders must take time to feed your own souls. It's possible to do ministry in such a way and at such a pace that your work for God, circle that, because every one of you are doing work for God, can destroy the work of God in your souls. And could I challenge you as leaders at Christ Fellowship, can you be the ones that lead? Can you be the ones that make sure that you're in the house, that you're in the room of worship and hearing God's word every Sunday? Can you be the ones that lead, and can you do your quiet time? And can you make sure that you're right there? Can you be the ones that lead and be a leader and be able to say, hey, I'm going to be the one that models tithing in my household. I'm going to be the one that trusts God the most. Can you be the ones that say, hey, I'm going to make it a commitment to make my group a priority? Because when you have those four cornerstones anchored in your life, the work for God will never dry up the work of God in your soul. Leaders must authentically share from their own journey. And can I encourage you, we're going to talk a little bit later about next steps, but can I just encourage you, have a spiritual next step. If you don't know your spiritual next step, ask your spouse. If you gave your spouse permission to say it honestly, they'll tell you. If you want to take it one step further, you got teenagers in your house, ask them your spiritual next step. Tell you what, it can be eye-opening. And provide spiritual growth tools and resources for your leaders. And your church does a beautiful job with what they're doing here. Can you turn with me to page 6? You impress from a distance, but you impact up close and personal. 1 Thessalonians says, for you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children. Again, you have that motif throughout the New Testament. It's always a parent-child motif. It's never a teacher-pupil motif. Why? Because it's built like a family system. As a father deals with his own children, telling them 3 things: encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and glory. If you want to work with people, if you want to see discipleship happen in your group, impact them up close and personal. It's doing the things that go the extra mile. It's when they're in the hospital. It's when they're going through a tough time. You don't call them up and say, hey, if you need anything, leave a message on my voicemail. You show up. When Rick and Kay, and I just want to publicly thank each one of you that prayed for Rick and Kay when their son took his life a few months back. On his first Sunday back, Rick said, when we went through our tragedy, the first people that arrived at Matthew's house were the people in my small group. He said, my small group spent the night with Kay and I at our house. Nobody left. That's impacting up close and personal. And in the beauty of God's orchestration, at the same time, in the midst of a lot of chaos and a lot of news media that was just peppering our congregation, the same thing happened in Josh, his son's small group. They spent the night at his house. And at Amy, their small group, because they all have younger kids, they rotated, but a few of them were spending the night there. That's how you impact people up close. And it happens when you have spiritual partners, people that support and encourage you and give you accountability and, are able to tell truth. Let me pause right here. I know there are some of you that you feel like you have the spiritual gift of truth-telling. You go, that's just the way God wired me, Pastor. I just got to call it like it is. And I appreciate you, and you should have stayed in New York. But, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Hey, hold on, where's the grace in the church? My goodness, Let me just tell you a little something. If you want to tell people the truth, understand this. It's built on trust. And the only way people are going to trust you is if you spend time with them. You want to be able to navigate your children in the teenage years? You spend time with them before they're a teenager so that they trust you, so that when you speak the truth, they won't roll their eyes at you. If you want to speak truth into people, because even if you want to speak the truth and you don't have the trust, they're not going to listen to you. So just tuck that away. That was for free. Look at the call out in the middle there. It says, most people have no one in their lives to love them enough to tell them the truth. I was so blessed with our small group because we were able to navigate through a tough moment in our group where we were going to have a marriage dissolve. And all of us showed up and said, you can get divorced, but we're moving in. So figure it out. But through a decade of time and trust, the truth was able to be heard. And it also comes with life-on-life discipleship, being able to say, who are you? How are you? And how can I help? I want you to see this testimony of Nan and Serge, because it was through this that you can see all the biblical principles of what a small group should be in their testimony. Could you watch this?
One heart, one mind, family of love, family of love, oh, family of God.
Well, currently I found myself with a diagnosis of adenocarcinoma, which means cancer of one of the cells inside of your body. Like mine came out to be the pancreas.
God was gracious in giving us 9 months of getting to fall in love with Serge and Nan before the storm hit last May.
Sergio wanted more time here, but he felt that whatever God's will was is what he was very comfortable with.
Our group supported them, I think, in many different ways. Physically, we were there for them. We had parties with them. We spent time with them. We actually had one of the men that actually mowed their yard. One couple mailed them a card every single day of the time they were sick.
Well, what our small group has given me through this whole thing is mental and spiritual help. If it isn't receiving a daily devotional from someone, or having somebody call me up and say, read so-and-so, verse so-and-so, this is for you today.
And after I saw how the group responded to Nan and Sergio and their need, I felt like, wow, if anything happened to me, I felt like I would have that too, that they would be there for me. And that was an absolutely enormous feeling.
We found out what it's like to be a team through a difficult time. Found out what it's like to have support where I'm weak, to allow my strengths to come out and support someone else. And so that the sum total of all that together, we were just a lot more than any one of us could have ever thought.
Just the outpouring of love, and it's all from God. I've had people at the house in an instant, almost an instant. As soon as one heard, there was a phone call, another phone call. Dory got a phone call. Next thing we know, we're having a prayer meeting at the house. We had 35 people there. And some people I didn't even know.
Our small group learned an incredible lesson in honesty and interdependence through this that I don't think any of us will be the same again. We learned in a really practical way, Ecclesiastes 4, that two are better than one. And throughout this experience and throughout the months before this even hit our small group, God was preparing us for this, and we didn't even realize it. We became 12 strands of a very tight, strong cord.
Nan said so many times through this, I couldn't have made it. I couldn't have done it without our small group. They gave me so much comfort.
And my heart overflows with gratitude and love for these people that the Lord has sent into our life. And through this time, they give us help, they give us hope, they have prayed for us constantly, and there is such a genuine caring there. And now our longest prayer has been answered, and our dearest friends, Pat and Ken Stone, are going to be joining our small group.
The Lord just worked through him that way to show us that his amazing faith was something that we wanted to.
Some hearing about our experience would say, that's the exact reason I don't want to be in a small group. They want to have a safe emotional distance. But the truth is, life is messy, and it may not be terminal cancer, but everyone's life has problems. And the safest emotional distance we found is when you're bound with other believers who are loving and committed to you, and where you can lovingly commit to others, because life is just too short to go it alone.
Family of God, family of love, oh, family of God.
We love you, brother, and you've made it quite an impression on our hearts and our minds and our souls, and you're up there laughing right at us right now. I know that, so love you, Sergio.
And he would say, I know Nan is never going to get over losing me, but with God and the small group, I know she'll get through it.
Hold on to that last little snapshot, because I'm going to come back to that at the end. Page 7, maintain a healthy spiritual diet. And here's what I would tell you. How many of you grew up in a home where you had 3 or more kids in the home? Yeah, a lot of you. And if you left it up for popular vote on what you should have for dinner, you would have, and the trouble with that is that the immature outweigh the mature. And if you left it up for a popular vote, you would have ice cream and Skittles and Starburst and nachos, things like that. But as a parent, you don't let your kids do that because you're the mature. So you lay the law down and say, no, we're not going to do that. We'll have good things like McDonald's and Taco Bell, and that's the kind of dinner we'll have. The important part here is I want you to understand as you read through this, just understand when you're doing curriculum, don't do curriculum just by happenstance. Have a curriculum diet that says, not only do we just want to do topical things, but we want to be able to do like, a book of the New Testament, a book of the Old Testament, some doctrine. Have a spiritual diet, and curriculum will help you build discipleship in your group. Page 8, number 5. Don't underestimate growth moments in your group meeting. Don't underestimate growth moments in your group meeting. The first bullet point right there is you want to facilitate for life change. Now there's a diagram that's right there, and the diagram on the left is dispensing information. Those are the people with the gift of teaching. You want to dispense information. But when you get people talking, they give you windows into their soul. And that's how you can help navigate and facilitate transformation to happen. When you are working with people and you have discussion happening, you can start to see how God is working inside of their life. I was in our group one time, and with all the gusto, one of the ladies in our group just leaned over me, and I don't know if you've ever had somebody ask you a question with such importance that even though you knew the answer, you were scared to say it. And she looked at me in the middle of group and she goes, "Where's Veronica in the New Testament?" And I'm going, Veronica. I had a girlfriend named Veronica. That's not it. And I'm thinking, and by the grace of God, because I was raised in a somewhat quasi-Catholic home, I knew she was talking about Veronica as a Station of the Cross. And I go, Veronica's not in the New Testament. She's in your tradition. And it helped our group discuss and be able to say, let's do a study of the life of Jesus. In there are some facilitation tips that will help you kind of facilitate transformation. Don't answer your own questions. And what I mean there is just that don't send a question out to the group and wait 3 nanoseconds and go, "Oh, this is the answer." Because give them time to do that. If you have to, count in your head, to like 500. And, let the Holy Spirit work on people. Get comfortable with silence and quiet. You hear the nervous laughter? It's like 10 seconds into it. Understand that when it's quiet, God can do stuff. You want to encourage, you want to give affirmation, you want to try to involve everybody. Matter of fact, people always ask me, when is a group too big? And that's when not everybody talks. If everybody doesn't talk in your group, it's too big. I had a guy come up to me after conference one time. He says, "There's only 4 in my group and someone doesn't talk." And I go, "You need to shut up." You got to be able to mold that in. Be a good listener. Be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. There's all kinds of good stuff in there. Turn over to page 9. Don't focus on getting through all the material like I'm trying to do right now because my time is out. But what you want to focus on is, what is God doing? What is God doing in people? It is okay. Just because there's a lesson and a study guide that says session 1, you don't have to get through all of session 1 on the first group meeting. You're allowed to spread it out over multiple meetings. And then teach your hosts how to deal with sin issues. And I just tell you, gossip, heresy and doctrinal issues, divisiveness. The number one thing is gossip. On your outline right there, circle Matthew 18. If you do not know that verse, you need to get acquainted with that. Because I will tell you this, 99% of church problems could be resolved if people did Matthew 18. Because what Matthew 18 says is, if you have a problem, talk to the person. Don't talk to everybody else, talk to the person. If you still have a problem, bring somebody else. If you still have the problem, bring the church leadership into it. The problem is when somebody has a problem, they love to talk to everybody but the person. And if you're in a group meeting and somebody's talking about somebody that's in a negative connotation and the person's not there, it's your job to say, let's put a pause on that right now because the person's not here. And just go right through Matthew 18. You do that, your group will be much healthier. Number 6, realize the power of words. Encouragement is a powerful, powerful word. Hebrews 3:13 says, "But encourage one another daily as long as it's called today, so that none of you will be hardened." Circle the word hardened, by sin's deceitfulness. This verse says that encouragement has the power to restrain sin. Encouragement has the power to restrain sin. A great phrase we always use to our pastoral team is a look, a word, a touch. When you see people, a look them in the eyes. A word, give them some encouragement. And a touch, give them a hug if you know them well enough. Shake their hand, put your arm on their shoulder. A look, a word, a touch. Conflict resolution. Basically, just let me just say this. Conflict is like the idiot lights on your car. You know when the oil light comes on? It's telling you there's a deficiency in your car. Don't look for it to get brighter before you work on it. Go right away after it. But look for, whenever you have conflict in your marriage, in your household, or in your group, if you have conflict, that's an idiot light coming on saying you're deficient in something. And 9 times out of 10, it'll be in the area of communication. And then truth-telling, I already talked to you about that. Then number 7, constantly and consistently encourage spiritual next steps. Encourage spiritual next steps. I want everybody to pull out this card that's up on the screen right now. It's called Leadership, and it's a little circle of friends. I want everybody to pull it out right now. Dig through your packet. If you can't find it, take your neighbors and say, hey, let me have it. Once you find it, hold it up so I know everyone's got it. I like that. Some of you are adding the extra wave. That's the Pentecostal crew in you. Yeah, hallelujah. Okay. Your church is trying to reach out to 100,000 people to step across the line of faith. One of the things that I can tell you right now, and I want you to do this simple exercise, is it starts with a relationship with a person. And how it happens is it's pulling names in the back of your head to the front of your head. So, let's pretend this is my small group. We'll start right here. You're so thankful. Appreciate that. We can shake hands. I'm comfortable with that. And we're going to come all the way through right here. Sorry. It's almost a women's group, but we have one dude. Lucky dude. You're a dude, right? I am. Okay, good. So used to being in California, you can't be too risky. One of the next steps that all of us need to work on is identifying somebody that we know that doesn't know Jesus. So real-time exercise with you guys. What's the first name, and you can do this in your small group, and I'd encourage you to do it. What's the first name of somebody close to you that doesn't know Jesus? Right here, close proximity-wise. Don't say Aunt Betsy that lives in Nebraska or something like that. First name only. Huh? Glasney? Tony. Norman. Ryan. Alan. Fernando. Now, what's just happened? Evidently nothing. Was it? Okay, you remember those people are not saved, and what happens when you vocalize it and tell people in your small group who that person is? What happens when you say the name of the person? Accountability. Because when you see him, and I thought that was a name tag. I was going to say, when I see 203. When I see you at group and I say, how's Tony? He goes, Tony who? Tony, the guy that you put on this card that you're praying for. You pray for him and you say, God, give me a divine appointment where I can run into him at the mailbox, at the gas station, at the grocery store. God, give me some way I can move from a prayer to a conversation. And when you have the conversation, you say, God, give me a way I can move from a conversation to a Starbucks so we can have a little time. Pray that I can move from a Starbucks to my house for dinner. Pray that, God, you give me an opportunity for a crisis to happen so that they can step across the line. I want you to take 20 seconds right now, and I want you to write the first name of somebody you want to see come to know Jesus that's close to you right now. If you don't know somebody, don't take that as shame or guilt. Say, God, give me a person. Give me a name. Right now, 20 seconds, every head down, and write somebody's name down. While you're doing that, do you remember at the end of the video, the stone cold looking guy named Ken Stone, scared to death? It's because 6 days before we filmed that, 6 days when we were filming, he accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior. Scared to death, didn't know what he was doing. After Sergio passed away, somebody else led the group. But on the next gen of the group, Ken led the group. And Ken, who stepped across the line because of that group, because Nan and Serge had prayed for him, 2 generations later, he was leading the group. And he took that group, a little bit elderly, you know, not the most young Sprite chickens in the world, but took that group not once, not twice, but 3 times over to Africa to put in water purification systems in a village because one small group prayed for a name. That's what's going to happen with the name every one of you wrote on a card. Take it seriously. Take it to your group. Do the same exercise. Emilio, do you still love me? Amen. Come on up.